Alright, so, this next video is basically going to be an intro video of sorts. I'm going to start doing, quote-unquote, red pill topics. Now, for those of you who don't know, red pill is not necessarily videos that deal with, red pill is not necessarily videos that deal with, you know, conspiracy theories or things like that. They're more videos that deal with intergender relationships. Well, let me just say male-female relationships, mainly from a male's perspective. I'm going to start doing more videos on that because I don't really see too many people doing videos on this subject who really seem like they have an idea of what's going on in the real world in general. Okay, you have a lot of these red pillars, or you know, these MGTOW types, and some of them are just on some outrageous crap, right? You know, you'll have some people, they will go around saying, you know, women these days, they're all about looks, and looks matter, and things like that. You will have people who will go around saying, you know, if you're black or whatever, you know, non-black women will love you, and things like that. You have people going around saying, you know, making all of these comments about, like, women and vaginas, and it starts to even, you know, sound really gay, to be honest, right? Well, you'll have all of these people saying all of these things, and they'll be saying, like, oh, it's the really buff guys or whatever, the really tall guys who are getting all the women. And, you know, it's the Chads or whatever, and it's the, you know, the Tyrones or whatever, and they're getting all the women. And you'll have people basically saying, you know, it's easy if you are like a, you know, a certain type of person to get women, and that it's only a small group of people who have a hard time getting women. All of these things, they're not real. They're false, okay? You have a lot of people, they don't really seem to understand what they're really talking about. As far as people who make red pill videos, who really understand what they're talking about, you got a very small number. You have this guy, he calls himself now Satanic TFL. He really understands reality and, you know, male-female relations. And I would more or less endorse him. I mean, I'm not saying I'd endorse him as a person, but, you know, the ideas that he puts out are generally almost all sound. There's probably a few things I might disagree with. You know, you can't agree with someone on everything, but for the most part, a lot of the ideas he puts out are pretty sound. So, you know, Satanic TFL is a red pill kind of guy who probably he gets it. Then, you know, there's some other guys who at least kind of get it. You know, there's this guy, Hell by the Dashboard Light, and, you know, he kind of gets it. You know, I can't say I endorse everything he says. You know, he certainly seems to have very hard feelings when he, you know, about black people or whatever, when, you know, allegedly 13% of the population, you know, very powerless or whatever. A lot of very hard feelings. You know, I can't say I endorse everything, but he certainly does understand and get reality to a large degree. There's another guy, called Black Pride. I mean, you'd find him if you typed it in. And, you know, this guy, he does seem to get it, especially from a black man's perspective. You know, just about, you know, how women of other races, you know, really view black men, how they really feel about black men, how, you know, the dating scene really is for black men. This guy, Black Pride, often seems to get it. Now, again, you know, he can be quite racially extreme, you know, from a black perspective. So I certainly don't endorse all of his everything that he's ever said. And you know, I believe black men should be and get with black women. So, you know, some of his views on black women, you know, I certainly don't endorse. But I mean, I will say black women in the West, on the West Coast, in Southern California, to be specific, no pun intended, they can be really, I'm currently in the South, and you will see decent looking black women, you know, regularly, okay? But out west, out in Cali, on the West Coast, it's like, I don't know what happened or what's going on, but black women in the West Coast, they're just not they're not up to par, really. I don't know, they're very janky looking. They're not you know, it really is a little bit of a case where it's almost like, you know, they look ratchet, and if they don't look ratchet, they're with a white dude or something. I mean, honestly, if you're black and you live on the West Coast, it's time to pack up and leave. The West Coast was kind of cool for black people decades ago, but I mean, in the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's just everything is really deteriorated for black people out there in terms of, you know, just the type of community and the type of black people you would find out west, you know. It seemed like after Rodney King, you know, there was just a growing exodus of black people from the West Coast, and you know, in California in particular, a lot of the black males who were, you know, not on some faggy stuff, you know, a lot of them tended to leave, and you know, so who do you got left? You know what I mean? And I mean, with the women, I don't know, maybe a lot of the cooler women seem to leave too. There's just been, I mean, you look up every, you know, major city on the western, you know, in the western U.S., since the 90s, the black numbers have dropped in most of them, okay? In Seattle, in San Diego, in Southern California, in L.A., the black numbers, in Oakland even, okay, the black numbers have really dropped just about everywhere. So yeah, I would say if you're a black man or a woman looking for love, you know, it's really time to pack it up and leave. Yeah, man, where am I? What was I on? But yeah, Black Pride, that guy, you know, certainly don't agree with you know, a lot of his views on black women, but I will say black women in, you know, the western U.S. are certainly, you know, not up to the level that they are out east or down south, you know. But those guys, they get it. There's another guy, you know, he goes by the name Steve Hoka. He just, in the last couple months, took down pretty much, you know, his YouTube channel with all of his content, but he really seemed to have gotten it. And, there's still videos of Steve Hoka out there for those who are interested in him. And, he comes at things through less of a TFL perspective. I mean, less of a MGTOW perspective, but more of a TFL type of perspective, which I think is the way to go. But, I'm going to be starting to do some more MGTOW, TFL, Redpill type content. Just because I don't really see too many smart people who really get it. Or you have people like this, I think, BGS Igmore or something. This black dude who's basically going, there was a black people MGTOW split, like, maybe 2 years ago or whatever. And you had a lot of black people, being MGTOW, but they wanted to do something else. And so this guy popped up, and, this guy, he really pushes interracial dating, which, I mean, if you're black, that's not the way to go. If you're black and you want to see what happens when a bunch of black people date interracially, look at Brazil, look at the Dominican Republic, okay? Basically, the only thing that's going to happen is you're still going to have your pure white people at the top, and, you're going to have your mixed breed mulattoes basically coming through, and they're like, they're like this in-between class, and, they don't mind being an in-between class or putting down black people, like real black people, as long as, they're above real black people, and they don't mind being below white people, just as long as they're above black people. And you could pretty much say that about all non-white races of people. They don't mind placing white people up top, just as long as they're above black people, okay? That's pretty much their MO. And that's what you're going to get when you're black and you encourage all this interracial dating, all right? So it's not good. It doesn't favor black people. It doesn't make more real black people. If you want to make more real black people, marry someone black. But when you do this whole mulatto thing, the only thing it really tends to do is to bite black people in the butt, because this mulatto class, they usually turn on black people, okay? And there may be some individual exceptions, but by and large, they mainly turn on black people. Now, you often have a lot of white people saying like stuff like, black people's own people sold them into slavery. But, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot that they're leaving out with that. And one of the things is, a lot of the so-called black people who were the biggest slave traders, they were, they were mulattoes, they were black Arabs, they were black Moors. They weren't just like normal black people a lot of the time. So, this whole creation of mulattoes and mixed people, black people really ought not to do that. I mean, not even getting in religious about it, but just from a secular perspective, black people really ought not to do that, because it usually only just bites black people in the butt. So, any black person who's like a really strong booster of interracial dating, they either don't know history, or they're just interested in the destruction of the black race secretly, and that's going to be an agenda that they're not going to tell you. So, I'm really gonna start doing more of this kind of red pill like content, just because I just don't see people who can really cut it, who are actually making these type of videos. I think I can cut it, so I'm gonna be making these type of videos. And even if you're a woman, and I honestly hope eventually most of my subscribers become women. I hope you can just hear what I'm saying and take it with a grain of salt, because again, I'm not in favor of abandoning women. You're not gonna see me like some other YouTubers saying like women don't have souls and stuff like that, because honestly, I think maybe there may be more women with souls than men at this point. I mean, real, true, dyed-in-the-wool men, kind of hard to see, and to come by in these days. So, you're not going to see me saying anything crazy about women or anything like that. But, I mean, it might be a little bit hurtful, but you're going to have to understand the point of it. And that is, in these last days of time, really just got to start being a lot more honest with each other. And so, with that, I think that's a good intro video. I'm going to be ending it now. I really hope that you guys can, follow this Redpill content. And thanks. I'm out.